Should taxpayers be forced to pay for art funding? Nearly every state budget today is being squeezed, and so legislators in the state houses and Senate are determining where they can cut funding. Here in the state of Georgia, we have a $17.8 billion budget. Schools are being consolidated. There's a consideration of four-day week, school week. There are furlough days and so forth. Trying to cut expenses any way they possibly can. And one of the areas in which the cuts are being made is in the area of the arts. And the governor's fiscal 2011 budget cut arts funding to $890,735, down from $2.52 million this year. And Georgia could be the only state without an arts council recognized by the National Endowment for the Arts unless the Senate restores funding cut by the House. Now, the Senate did, in fact, restore that funding because of the hue and the outcry of those in the art community. Question is, should we as taxpayers be forced to pay for art funding? If art funding, then why not something that I like? Why not pressure the state to do something that I think is that everybody ought to participate in? And this is part of the problem with arts funding. Now, it's not that I'm against the arts, not by a long shot, but the question is, should I be forced to pay for arts funding? In the last 20 years or so, I mean, I haven't been to an Atlanta museum or participated in any sort of arts meeting in the Atlanta area, which is mostly where this takes place. Generally, the arts funding takes place in areas where there's the middle class and upper middle class that they benefit by all this. They extract money from the citizens from all across the state of Georgia, and then it is given to these arts groups, and then they put in art what they deem as what they like. We have an aquarium here in the Atlanta area. It was paid for by private money, and there's a Coca-Cola museum, and of course Coca-Cola paid for it. And so I've just always wondered, why is it that when something like arts funding comes along, that if people are really genuinely interested in getting the arts to, say, lower class students and in educational processes, that they don't go out and raise money themselves. I mean, and it's generally the people in the middle and the upper middle class that enjoy the arts so much. Why don't they go out and talk to Bill Gates and a lot of sports figures and those who make billions and billions of dollars and get them to donate for the arts? And some of them do, in fact, do that. But I shouldn't be made to pay for all of this. But this typically comes down to self-interest. There was, of course, a rally at the Capitol steps a couple of days ago. Musicians, actors, puppeteers gathered to protest art funding cuts and the elimination of the Georgia Council for the Arts. And here's what Senator Vincent Fort, an Atlanta Democrat, told the crowd: "If we do what some people want to do and cut this funding, I'm going to be ashamed to be from Georgia. This is a defining issue of who we are as Georgians." Look, if this is such a defining issue, go out and raise money for it. Get people who support your cause to give you money for it. This is what you do. You start a business and you raise money. If it's something that you want to support, you donate to that cause. And the biggest applause came when Fort said that arts encourage economic development. Again, this is very similar to the broken window fallacy. You go out there and you break some windows, and of course you have to hire people in order to fix those windows. If people got to keep their money and to spend it the way they wanted to spend it, it also would entice economic development. If you think that the arts in Atlanta spur economic development, then there's money involved in this, and it seems to me that this would be a business investment. This would be a private enterprise. If there's actually money in it and capital expenditure would be necessary for it, venture capitalists would come in. If this is really dealing with economic growth, then come in here and do it on a private basis. And These are our lives. This is what a worker, one of the arts workers for 7 stages in Atlanta says, these are our lives, our jobs, how we support our families. A day off of work is essential when we're fighting for our livelihood. That is, a day off to protest these cuts is necessary if we're going to keep these things. This is our job we're talking about here. Yeah, but this is a job that you're taking money from individual citizens, and then you're creating a job for you, taking money from me. That's just not right. I'm sorry. Again, if the arts community is something that should be supported, then go out and get the funding for it. Then there's the question of who decides what's art and for the public good. And this has always been a contentious question. This was especially true with the National Endowment for the Arts. You had these Mapplethorpe exhibits. You had this pornographic art, and anything they deem to be art is art because they say so. Let consumers decide what's art by buying it themselves. If you really think something is art, buy it and donate it to a museum. If you really love art, then fund it and raise funds for it. But don't force me to do so. There's a very good book on this by Edward C. Banfield called The Democratic Muse, Visual Arts and the Public Interest. It's a little dated, but the basic principles are the same. And there's a letter in here by Leonard Rubin. It was published in the New York Times on March 1st, 1981. So this is right at the beginning of Ronald Reagan's presidency, and it's to the editor. And he says, I am sorry that Martha Wilson is shocked by the president's recommended cuts in funding for the arts, which she believes would be dealt a heavy blow affecting the quality of life in America. The worst blow, the unkindest cut, is inflicted when officials and those with a stake in approved high culture decide what arts my tax dollar is to support. I am tired of having people confiscate my movie money to buy what they consider aesthetically preferable. I welcome the Reagan move toward restoring my right to define what constitutes quality in my life. No matching funds needed, thanks. And I think that's the sentiment that a lot of us feel. We love art. We love to own art. We would support the arts, but I don't feel like someone should come and take money from me so people can have a job in a particular field. If you believe that art is something you love, then fund it yourself. If you feel that it is necessary for a community, then you go out and raise money for it. There are lots of people out there with lots of money who would love to do so. But don't confiscate my tax dollars to support the arts community, just like I wouldn't want you to confiscate my tax dollars to support what I do here in a private business. It's none of your business to do that, and I shouldn't use the power of the state to do that as well. And so the name of the book is The Democratic Muse, Visual Arts and the Public Interest, and you could probably get it in some online used book company, bookfinder.com. It's very, very helpful to try to deal with all of this. And if this is still in the budget, can you imagine what else is in a budget of $17.8 billion? And I believe that most state budgets could be cut by at least 10%, probably closer to 20%. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that as we're in this economic downturn, and then cut taxes as well, so people could have their own discretionary use of their own money to do what they want with it.
For more related to this topic, check out God and Government, a biblical and historical study. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.